Hiya, welcome to this video. Hey Bean, hey Bean. Are you going to come in here and be on video? Yeah, there she is. Yeah, there she is. Yeah. Close up. How about that for a treat, viewers? Right, this video is going to be about state superstructure and the narcissistic propaganda matrix, which I view as the same things. So it's different ways of saying the same thing. I don't hate the people within the state superstructure. They're just part of a narcissistic propaganda matrix. I'm not prejudiced against them as individuals. If I was at Westminster and I went meeting people who are in this institution that I've gone about as being so bad, I'm not expecting them to all be bad people. I'm not prejudiced towards them as individuals. I'm not prejudiced to them like someone in the 1800s was prejudiced towards someone who's gay, and they're just horrible to them, just horrible, thinking, because they think they're like, and it's like just wrong, it's just wrong. I'm not prejudiced like that towards them. So I often think this is a confusion that some people make, because a lot of people say what I'm saying here, that it's not a prejudice. It's more like the state superstructure does. Yeah, it's what it does is wrong. What it does is wrong. So like the state superstructure causes divide and rule. That's one thing it does, divide and rule, and that is a wrong thing to do. It's highly immoral. It takes over people's minds. And like for their entire lives, so they have never any independence of mind. That is highly wrong. So we get a situation where, like, if you know someone and all their views tick a box of like left of centre, every single one, or you get someone who's right wing and every single view is ticked off as right wing. What's happened there is their minds have been taken over by one side of the state superstructure. Now, state superstructure is one, but it requires this sort of like perception of free speech in order to preserve itself and to continue. I mean, free speech in this case is bollocks, because you can reach like 20 people, they can reach like millions. They never mention that, do they? But anyway, so like if you said to me, well, where's your right-wing view, Paul? I'd say the free market economy is. I think it's the best way of distributing goods over a wide area. So like, people's minds are mind-jacked, basically. And they herd people into these ideological cages, and you can see who's in them cages and who isn't. For example, you get some people who are really good at criticising their own side, and it's sort of like almost like it's not really a side they've got. It's more like their views slant a little way this way, but they're not just given a free pass to everything. They're not in the cage, really. They're not really in the cage. Whereas other people's mind is just totally took over, and they're completely at the mercy of that which they get their news and their politics from. That is immoral on the state's superstructure side because they need that, and therefore they can't say, oh, nothing to do with us. It's everything to do with them. That's power and control, and it's manipulative, and it's not just a little bit immoral. To take over millions of people's minds is not just a little bit immoral, it's very immoral, it's crooked. And that's the institution. It's the narcissistic propaganda matrix, the state superstructure. There's two ways to do it. One, divide and rule. Two, they throw pennies at the plebs to buy them off. There's a lot of realignment. So it's not just Labour does it the left way and Tories do it the right way. I mean, like, the Labour Party now under Starmer are probably to the right of Rishi Sunak. I think Rishi Sunak's got one of those checklists. He's been brainwashed by some element of the Conservatives as he ticks off, I forgot this right-wing policy done yet, right-wing policy, right-wing policy, right-wing policy. And of course a few years ago, Tory manifesto slagged off Thatcherism in effect, saying that we are not that anymore. We are more like Germany. And all this stuff, wanting to increase public spending to the highest levels ever, to German levels. They did as well. I mean, after that manifesto, COVID hit, right? So they could say, oh, it was because of COVID. But they had a manifesto policy to do that. So I think COVID just brought it forward a bit, that's all. But it ends up still preserving vast inequality. It's still just pennies to us, and you know, this isn't Sweden. They want people to have not much voice. They want that. They want the inequality. They want that power, vastness of power differential. There's no effort really to make Joe Blogs almost as powerful as the state superstructure. It's like ridiculous. It's just absurd. So this vast power difference, it's not unlucky. It's not like, oh my God. I wish the Darren out in Chicago, you know, was as much as what we got. You know, I mean, it's ridiculous. There's no comparison. We are living through a time of extreme power inequality. Extreme power inequality. Not like, this isn't a good effort in history. It's a bad effort. Well, it's not even an effort, it's deliberate. But we're not unique, because no power in the history of human civilization has ever given up power voluntarily. You see, doesn't that tell you something? That they want that power and control. It creates a narcissistic culture at the top. There's no democratic option to oppose the state superstructure. Because they don't want genuine change. They don't want the power gap to be reduced. It's just not allowed. The state superstructure cannot be voted out. And therefore, and if you said, oh well, protest and riot against them, well, yeah, and then you would see how much they want to preserve that state superstructure, because they'll come out and try and beat the living crap out of you all. It's not like they would say, oh, we're not wanted anymore. You know, and we accept. Bollocks. Their attitude is this: you will never vote the state out, and you'll never write us out. We're never, ever out. That's their attitude. The liberal left is as much to do with preserving this system, which exists entirely to serve the super rich capitalists. They have as much to do with that as any centre-right thing, because if you said the centre-left give an impression sometimes that it's not for them, with this talk about redistribution of power, wealth, income, but they look at the history. It preserves the state superstructure, and it's for the benefit of the super rich capitalists. Now, it's also for the benefit of themselves, like power for Downing Street Parliament, news media, whether that be TV or newspapers. It's for them, it's all of that, and it's mainly for the super rich capitalists. It's like that's all connected together as the one. And a few years ago you were getting, I don't know if you still are, because I've opted out of quite a lot of consuming politics, but there were conservatives were being called social democrats, and they were letting it be said. They weren't challenging that fact, not the ones at the top of the party. And now you've got Keir Starmer saying he's a conservative. So a real conservative, he says, is implying I'm a better conservative than you lot, because I really am. He's implying that they are social democrats, where he's a conservative. And he could actually, if he wanted to, he could actually quote them. So therefore we're going to have a complete swap. That's what I think's quite happened here. I've been saying for years that they're swapping over, but it's just musical chairs. You can almost ignore it, because they're all one. Now, how on earth, but my fear is this, that if there was protests, if there was riots, not only would the violence be bad, but my fear would be replacement, because power corrupts. So if the revolutionaries won, they would just become the establishment. They would take over the existing machinery of the state. They wouldn't want to get rid of it. They would take over the news media, and they would find Parliament and Commons very useful to them. They'd find that existing power structure fantastic, backed up by the police and the army. And they would, Hitler thought that the UK state was quite good. I don't know if he thought it was perfect, but he certainly thought it good for centralisation of power, whereas Switzerland to him, a nightmare. Well, modern Switzerland, nowadays Switzerland, I'm saying, he would hate. I don't know what he said about Switzerland back then, but he would dislike Switzerland now because it's so decentralised that he would feel like he was lacking power and couldn't get power. So yeah, there's that, and that my fear is a replacement revolutionaries. I mean, there was an argument in the 70s between Lennon and Hoyland, John Lennon and Hoyland. And Hoyland was a socialist who wanted to do violence. Lennon thought, no, I don't want kids screaming in the street. I don't want adults being scared in the streets either. And I wouldn't want to get killed myself. I'm not trying to be ironic, because obviously he did get killed eventually, but in a different context. But he saying that, well, and also he was also saying, not only am I against Hoyland's attitude of violent revolution, I'm against the outcome, he was saying, because the inevitable outcome would be that the revolutionaries, would take the state for themselves and would become the establishment. Lennon, like myself, was always wondering, how can there be a revolution which is like where the winners did not just take the state, which is everything we're against. That power and control, that manipulation, that propaganda, the deceiving all the time, the utter obviousness that it's for themselves and not for us, and yet brainwashing millions of people into thinking it is for them, unbelievably. I mean, really, no, it's not. It's not for you. It's the state has it so comfortable, and the super rich capitalists have it so comfortable, and the ability to reach to people compared to you only being able to reach 20 people. It's so obvious the state exists for itself. It's a complete joke to think anything else. It's embarrassing. It's very embarrassing. Now, what would the outcome be of a successful revolution, you might ask, where you've got sliced all the top off non-violently, not French Revolution slicing the heads off, not that type. Well, for a start, these super rich capitalists are paranoid, because I wouldn't want it to be that they were now living a miserable life. Goodness me. I mean, it gives it away when you think of those. They weren't scared of a revolution, they wanted one. They knew they wouldn't be sent back to blooming living like working class Liverpool. They knew that they'd got it cushy now. You know, they knew that. But some super rich capitalists give me the impression that they think that somehow we're going to send them into the slums. It's so absurd. And yet other rich people, who are like celebrities and all that, don't think that. They're the ones who are correct. They're not going to be. They're still going to have a lot of cash. Oh, it's so obvious again. It's so obvious, not seen by some people. I mean, like, say I won the national lottery, and then there was a revolution. I would be thinking, oh no, I'm going to be so poor. And come on, level up the brain cells. Now, what sort of thing would happen then, as I was saying a minute ago? Right, inevitably, if you slice off the top, you're going to get there's no centralised power anymore, so it has to be decentralised. That would be automatic. Now, if it had happened in 1988 in Liverpool, then a year later in 89, when there was the Hillsborough disaster, there would not have been a 30-year or whatever, how many years cover-up, because Liverpool would have control over Liverpool, and it wouldn't cover up their own tragedy. It would get to the bottom of it. And the Sun newspaper wouldn't exist. So you wouldn't have had highly offensive stories to Liverpudlians in that newspaper. So it wouldn't exist, so there'd be no ban on the paper now, because it wouldn't exist. And no Sun reporters being able to go to Anfield and report on the match for decades. And all that stuff. So yeah, that sort of thing would be a consequence of decentralisation. Power closer to those who would exercise it for their, who genuinely have a connection. You know what I mean? Obviously, Sun newspaper and Scousers and Westminster and Scousers and the Tories and Scousers, it just didn't click, did it? Really. Whereas Liverpudlians and, like, for example, the Liverpool Echo newspaper and Liverpool football and Liverpool as a city and Liverpool Football Club would be fine. Obviously, wrecks from their personal tragedies, but there wouldn't be this added on feeling of being given heartache on top of heartache, trauma on top of trauma. So that is a good example I've given there of a difference. A very good example, I think. I'm pleased with that one. Now, this sort of thing, if it had happened in Newcastle, would have been the same. There would have been this same disconnect. So, whereas Liverpool's the I give because that happened, because the potential exists for elsewhere, it shows why this is good for elsewhere as well. what I'm saying is good for elsewhere as well, because the same logic applies. I just cannot prove it because Newcastle haven't had that Hillsborough happen to them, thankfully for them, for Newcastle. Don't want that to happen, obviously. So, like, this is it still applies though. Liverpool has, it's got a reputation now for being the most anti-establishment city, but it's not Catalonia. I don't think we have a Catalonia in the UK. The public they agree with stuff that I say about the power and corruption, the remoteness, the cliques. They don't like the national newspapers. They agree with all of this stuff, but they don't know what to do. My view is that it requires a shock to kick them, to get them a kick, to get them thinking, yes, we can do something. I don't know what that shock is going to be honest. I wish I did. But when it happens, that's when they need to really go for it. And so what I'm saying now is, we need Catalonias. We don't have Catalonias, but we have the potential to be like Catalonia, like these different cities, because the public in the UK agree with what I think I said. The same sort, they like this sort of thing. They hear, they think, yeah, that's right. But they don't know what to do. They're not alone on that. It's not a British thing. French don't know what to do. The Germans don't know what to do. So to speak. And my view is that Catalonia is what's required. But Catalonia has a vast history that I'm weak on, but I understand that it's there. I understand that much. You know, we don't have, you know, you hear about Catalonia and the Basques movement. You don't hear, we haven't got something like that in the UK, where it says Scotland, but for me, Catalonia is different to Scotland, because Catalonia is in one region, and I'm talking like that level of decentralisation. And I don't, it's not my style. I have a detailed plan. You just get rid of the poison, which is that state superstructure, that propaganda matrix, and you get rid of the poison. You don't become the poison. All we're doing is delating. That's what I'm saying. Just delay it. It's not like type words on a computer screen. Then you delay it. That's good. Don't then start typing again. You know what I mean? Just delay the poison. Don't become the poison. What we really need is a bottom-up approach. We need a Catalonia. Oh, okay, you could say, what do you mean, Paul? Catalonia has messed up a few years back. We need something that gives that level of determination now. And it's because, the reason why I say this is because, one reason, the state superstructure propaganda matrix takes over people's minds, and it doesn't give a damn that it's done it. Hardly even thinks like that. It just does it. That's what it does. What it does is what counts. It herds them into these cages. They're never thinking for themselves. I can see it. I can see it. It's easy for me to see. Easy. It's not even natural. It's absolutely not how people are meant to think. People are meant to think in a way where they're just flowing, like with, arguing this way, arguing that way. They're not meant to be herded and brainwashed into this cage to fight this lot. That's not how we're meant to be. We're not meant to have that propaganda clique manage to do that. It's wrong. So that's why I say we need a Catalonia. Now, I don't mean it exactly like a Catalonia. For example, my weak knowledge of Catalonia is that they're really identifying with that, right? I mean, you'll get that in the UK to a lesser extent. But what I mean is that rather than this propaganda matrix at the top, it's just the decentralisation then just deals with problems as they arise. It doesn't dogmatise it into this like neediness for validation from this ideology and this party and stuff. It just deals with problems. So we don't have this mind corruption going on, this mind illness, this disease. That's what I mean. So it's not an identification thing. It'll be nothing like what the decentralisation will be so much that people wouldn't want to bother identifying with it. It's too boring. That sort of thing is what I'm trying to say. And that's what I'm thinking is needed desperately. Because what we have now is Orwellian. And it is wrong. And quite frankly, at the moment it doesn't look like much hope. We need something big to give a shock. That shock comes in place, then it has to be over once and for all for the state superstructure and its propaganda matrix. It needs to be brought down at the top. It just needs to be over. And that's the video.